Mm.
I can try to log in my encrypted, but if I do that, is it going to kick this off?
No, it'll keep broadcasting.
If I try to switch networks.
Is there a way to hook into the wall in there with an Ethernet?
I don't think there is. We're going to try to switch to encrypted. Just stay on.
Okay.
Because even if we get kicked off, we can go straight back to this. So actually, we should probably, I'm not going to stop the broadcast. I'm just going to close this window out. So bye for a second.
Okay.
There. Okay.
Uh-oh, got a little.
Okay, hold on a second.
Any better?
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm moving my windows around so I can sort of see my notes at the same time. So,
Okay.
Where did it go? Okay, then you guys are, where are you?
I just saw
A wire. A wire.
Okay.
Do you okay.
Yeah, it's a little better. It's still fuzzy though. I don't know why.
I don't know. I think the Wi-Fi in the Innovation Center is a little weird. I think let's just go with this. I mean, are you?
Maybe start recording them.
I don't know, Amy. Just looking at it, I mean, does it look? Because it's going to record. I mean, it could be on your end, but it's going to record pretty much what you see. Does it look acceptable? You think?
Oh, it's gonna record what I see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wish I could send. You know what? Let me send you a screenshot, and then you can see what I see.
Oh, okay. All right.
You don't want to be
It's
responsible for making that decision.
Okay.
You can just send it to my Gmail. I think it's up, or it will be in a second anyway.
Okay. I can put it in. Is there a chat?
You could send it to.
Oh yeah. Or
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's not gonna work. I don't know how to send an attachment through chat.
You know what I'll do? I will do a screen capture here, and we'll have a backup. So if it looks bad, we can use the screen capture.
Okay. Yeah, because it's more important that she looks good rather than you.
So you don't have to like.
No, I'm going to walk out in just a second. So.
Oh, okay.
This actually might be cooler to see like the broadcast and like all the little
stuff
around it. I don't know, but we'll have a backup.
Where's this going to save to?
This is going to save to my YouTube channel, and then I'll be able to download it.
Oh,
So we got two channels. We got the one that's saving to the YouTube, and we got the screen capture. So
but where's the screen capture saving
screen
to?
capture will save to your desktop.
To my
so You
desktop.
can put it in Dropbox or something and send it to me.
Yeah, okay.
I'll email you later.
Okay,
Don't worry about
yeah,
it.
I'm just trying to think, like, I think my Dropbox is, I don't
Or
pay,
Drive or
so
something.
I think it's has enough space,
Okay.
I think. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll figure something out.
Okay,
Thanks. Thank you for being patient, Amy. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about
No, it's fine. I hope that it's not me that's making it be
that.
fuzzy.
No.
We're always having trouble. I mean, we're going to do a hangout in our classroom, and every Thursday we have some kind of Wi-Fi issue. So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's here. But okay.
I'm gonna start recording now, audio. Okay,
Good luck.
okay,
Have fun.
all right,
Thank you.
okay.
So hi.
Hey, I'm gonna have to go back and forth. Okay,
Okay, so this is going to be kind of big picture. We'll start off with the smallest piece of it, and then we'll kind of get bigger from there.
okay,
But so I just want you to start with sort of telling me a little bit about the class from last semester, the Innovators in Residence class, and then the project that you're working on now with the students that's related to that. Oh, you know what? How do I turn off? Can you hear that noise?
I can, yeah, but I mean, won't this
You know
be?
what? I'm gonna close. Let me close out of my email so that it goes away.
Okay, well then I should probably close out of mine too.
Yeah.
Because mine will do that too.
I need to, like, I'm in 15 different windows, so I just need to check and make sure that I'm out of it in all of them.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Let me see. Oh, if I close this, I hope that doesn't make it go away. Okay. Actually, I think I am out of my email.
Okay, good.
Okay, let me bring this other screen back.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
I'm out of there now, so it shouldn't make any
Okay.
more noise.
Okay. All right.
If I turn it off, then I can't hear you, so that's a problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
my phone is on silent, so. Okay, well, and we'll just, if we hear a noise, I can just start over.
Okay, cool. Okay, so
Okay.
sorry, back to, so tell me a little bit about the class from last semester and then the project that you're working on with the students now that's sort of taking that to, the next level with using the sensors and the storytelling about it.
So the class last semester looked at water quality issues in West Virginia using a sensor called the riffle. And this sensor can go into a waterway and it can test for conductivity, and it can also test for the temperature. And as it collects data, it timestamps it so that you know what the water looked like, at a particular point in time. And so we used that sensor to look at water quality in the Monongahela River, which is the river that flows through Morgantown. The class started off really with just knowing the tool we were going to use, this sensor, the riffle. And then we presented to the students water quality issues that exist in West Virginia, and we let them decide what issue they wanted to pursue and what issue they wanted to use this sensor to try and discover more about. So it's a little bit of a backwards way of trying to tell a story. As a journalist, you would start with the issue, and then you might look for a tool to help you tell that story better. But with this particular instance, with this class, we started with the tool. We knew that we wanted to test this riffle sensor, and then we went and found an issue to try to use this sensor to help us investigate that issue more.
So how are you? No, that's great.
Okay.
How are you using it this semester? Like, what are you doing to kind of go beyond what the class did with the storytelling?
So last semester, the class spent a lot of time learning about the sensor, learning how it worked, overcoming some challenges that we had with it, and also learning more about the particular water quality issue that the students decided to pursue, which was whether fracking, which is drilling for natural gas, whether that process would have an effect on the Monongahela River. Those two things together took up a lot more time than I think the students and the professors too anticipated. So it didn't leave a lot of time for story production at the end of the semester. There really wasn't a story to come out of all the data collection and the research that the students had done. So this semester, we extended the project and decided to also use these sensors in a different application. And so right now, this semester, we have the sensors deployed in a small waterway just about an hour south of Morgantown. And we are looking at conductivity in this waterway, which is downstream of some mining activity. And there are some groups that are in this area that are concerned about water quality, that do their own testing on the water quality. And that's how we learned about this particular waterway and that it has some issues with levels of conductivity. So right now we have the sensors deployed there, and I have several students working with me researching conductivity as it relates to coal mining, and they're interviewing sources, and we plan to produce a story about this later this semester.
So with everything that you've learned so far with the class and working with the students, what do you see as some of the potentials for using sensors in journalism, and then also sort of that piece of citizen science and working? I mean, you already just said that there's a group that's sort of doing their own testing. I don't know if they're an environmental group or just people who are themselves, you know, as citizens being interested in this. But what do you see as sort of the big picture potential for using these types of tools in journalism?
I think that there is great potential for using sensors in telling journalism stories. I think that the applications that we currently see sensors being used for frequently now have to do with environmental issues. So our project is an example of how we are using a sensor to look at water quality. So that's one application for a sensor. There are other projects that look at air quality, which I think is another great way to use a sensor in journalism. So environmental issues is where I have seen these devices used most frequently. But the next, iteration of this could be that we use sensors to collect personal data. Right now, you may have on a Fitbit, and it's collecting all sorts of information on your movement and your calories burned and things like that. If you're somebody who wears this. There could be a way to take information that is sensed from our own behaviors and use that in some sort of storytelling based off of that data. Do you want me to speak to the citizen science piece, or do you want to go back on that more?
Yeah, go ahead.
About citizen science? So in addition to journalists having these new tools to use for storytelling, the sensors, citizen scientists also can use these sensors. And that's one of the things about the sensor that we're using, the Riffle, is that it's meant to be a tool for not only journalists, but for citizen scientists as well. And I think that there's great potential to allow the public to go out and do their own testing on environmental issues with sensors. Did you hear that? That was just a car.
I did.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I should start that over.
Yeah, go ahead. That was
Okay.
a car or something, yeah?
Yeah, it was a car down here in this parking lot. Sensors show great potential for journalists trying to tell environmental stories, but they also show great potential for citizen scientists and the public at large who have their own issues that are important to them that they want to get their own data for. So I think that it's a powerful tool for journalists, and it's also a powerful tool for the public at large and for citizen scientists to be able to use sensors to monitor issues that are important to them. Look at the Flint water crisis, for example. That the way that the crowdsourcing really of that information started was that the people in Flint received test kits from the researchers at Virginia Tech, and they were able then to test their own water and then send that information back. Now, I'm not sure what that test involved. It may not have involved sensors. I don't know what the actual device was that they used to test the water, but that's an example of how if you give people the tool to measure issues that are important to them, they can then do that, and then they can be more educated and they can make better decisions about their life and them for themselves and their families.
So it's interesting that you brought up Flint, because I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. Because in that case, it was a scientist who was working with the community. Do you think that there are ways that sort of, the journalist's role could become, in some ways, I don't know if it's more advocacy, but, if they were let's say there was a project of some sort, that journalists would actually try to get people out in a community to deploy sensors, and then the data would come back to them in order to tell stories. Do you see that there might be some opportunities for that, perhaps?
So you mentioned I think it's a concern, right? That it could become more of a journalist could become more of an advocate. Is that what you mean?
It's not necessarily
certain issues.
Yeah, I guess it's more, do you think that that's a role that they could play in a certain, in a space where, they, using sort of some of these tools, they become sort of more than just a journalist, I guess, or, I don't know. I don't know if what do you think about that, or what do you think about advocacy journalism using these sorts of tools?
Well, I think that there is the potential to where a journalist could get really invested with this story. If you're out there and you're deploying these sensors and you're collecting the data. But I think that as a journalist, you're also trained that you're constantly thinking about all sides of the story. So if you're, for example, let's take our story at the waterway in just south of Morgantown, where we're testing for conductivity in a stream below an active coal mine. We found out about this stream because of environmental groups that are concerned because their own testing has shown elevated levels of conductivity. So we know that there is a concern there. Now we're going there and we're deploying our own sensors to collect our own data. And I think that is what you would do as a journalist, even if you didn't have a sensor. You would go and you would hear from this group that's concerned, but then you need to go and do your own research. And now we can do that kind of research in a new, different way that we haven't done before. We can actually go and collect our own data and then compare that data to what this group has already collected, compare our data to perhaps what state data might exist or what data from the industry might exist. But the story doesn't stop there, just like it wouldn't even if you weren't even working with sensors. You would then go to the coal mining company and talk to them about what's happening. So I think that you might still be led to a story by a particular group or a particular person that has their own agenda, but as the journalist, you still have to come in with the open mind, and know that you're not using this device for any particular source. You're using this device to gather more information. It is part of your, just another tool in your toolbox as a journalist that you can use to gather more research and information for your story.
So how do you think that the journalists could use these tools to sort of engage with the community at large?
Well, these sensors could be used to engage the community, because you may not want to just put 1 or 2 sensors out. You actually may want to put multiple sensors out. And some locations where you may want these sensors to go, you may not have access to. It might be private property. And so in that way, you have to engage with the community to help you get these sensors where you feel they need to be. I think that it also is important to engage the community when you're doing these projects, because you don't want them to feel like there's something happening in their community, you're looking at something in their community, and they don't know what you're up to. I think transparency, again, this is a fundamental quality of a good journalist, is to be transparent. So I think if you're transparent with your community about what it is that you want to test, and you solicit their help, that I think that can only help the project grow stronger. I started to get a phone call. I don't know if you picked up.
I did hear a little something.
Okay, all right.
I wasn't sure what it was.
Oh yeah, that was my phone vibrating.
Okay.
Sorry. Set it down here. Okay.
I love how vibrations make noise.
Yeah. Not truly
It's
silent.
not really turned off. It's not silent. It's a vibration.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of sort of the potentials here, what do you what kind of ethical concerns do you have about these types of emerging forms and emerging tools?
The ethical considerations that need to be taken around using sensors, which is just another tool for journalists to, again, gather more research and information for their storytelling. But some ethical considerations around that would be, are you being transparent? Are you letting people know what you're up to? You know, if you're going to stick this device in a tree to test air quality around a school, or you're going to stick it in the stream to test, water quality, are you informing people about that? In the fall, when we deployed the sensors in the Monongahela River, there was a sign where the sensors were deployed that explained that this was part of a project. And so I think that transparency is still important, especially if we talk about using sensors on people to collect data and using them in that capacity to tell potential stories that may relate to information we can gather by sensors on people about them. Then of course you would need to inform people about the fact that they may be exposed to a sensor and it's collecting data. So I think transparency is the biggest ethical issue that I could see at this point with these devices.
What about privacy implications? You started earlier talking about sort of the Fitbit, right? And I wear one, and lots of people wear them. And, we've sort of signed up to, whatever app that's on our phone, maybe, or maybe it's on your computer, however you want to look at it. And there's just a lot of data that's being generated by sensors that we're sort of electing to wear as a personal device, I guess you could say. But ultimately, that information is going somewhere, and so I wonder what you think about sort of privacy implications, both of what, some of the things you've been talking about with environmental issues and things like that, but also if you start getting into sort of the personal sensors question.
I think that there could be privacy issues with collecting data in any capacity on people. We see this happening with companies that we use the devices that they offer, and then in using those devices, information about our usage is collected. And so that in and of itself is is personal information. And when we sign up for those products, we oftentimes have to agree to terms, and I'm not sure a lot of people read what they're agreeing to. As a journalist, though, I do see our role different than a company that's offering a product. So I think that if information is going to be gathered on an individual through a new technology that a journalist is using, and that information is going to find its way into a story, I think that journalists need to be upfront about that, and they need to tell people how the information is going to be used, how it might be used, and make sure that people are willing participants and knowledgeable and understand the privacy, or the loss of privacy that could be a result of them participating in a story where they might wear a sensor and then their personal data might be shared with a journalist for storytelling.
Did you all use, or did you deploy some of the sensors on private property?
No, we have not deployed the sensors on private property.
Okay.
We tested deployment from private property, but where we actually deployed them was on the banks of the river on the rail trail side. So that would have been county property, I guess, because the rail trail is a county park.
So in the case of, oh, go ahead.
Well, where we just deployed the sensors was a creek that runs by a road. And so knowing that roads are public, the creek's within 30 feet of the road.
If you were to think about putting them on private property, would there be a similar sort of, you were talking a little bit about, telling people where the information's going. How do you feel like you would, how do you feel like that deployment would be different on private property than what you've done on public property?
I think that if you're trying to deploy a sensor and use the data that you collect for a story, and you need to access a certain spot to deploy this sensor through private property, then you're going to have a conversation with folks and let them know what this story is about. And you have to be open to the fact that there may be people who don't want you to do the story that you intend to do. They may already have a particular stance on an issue and feel like you doing a story on it is just going to muddy the waters, if you excuse the pun, or bring attention to something they don't want attention brought to. And so you might get, no, you can't come through my property and put that sensor here. And you might get someone who says, yes, you can come onto my property and put this sensor here, and I want you to tell that story, and I want you to tell it this way. So you have to be careful too in that way, because perhaps someone may think because you're bringing a sensor onto their property and placing it there that you have an allegiance with them. And so you also have, as a journalist, have to make it clear that you're gathering information and that the story will be thoroughly researched, and this is just another way to research your story and to add more factual information to it, and not give anyone the impression that you're on somebody's team when it comes to telling a story.
How do you think, I mean, I don't know, like, let's say with some of the coal mining company, what land they own and whether you would be able to place something there. I'm assuming that you would need to ask their permission as well.
Yeah.
And sort of, what kind of situations do you anticipate, given that so many of the places that somebody might want to test might be on the private property of a company that could be polluting, or in any industry, whether it's coal or chemicals or whatever. How do you think that how do you sort of approach that?
Well, I think if we're talking about water quality and contaminants that may get into the waterway, pollution doesn't stay still, it moves. If we think about the Charleston chemical spill that happened in 2014 in January, that pollution entered the water, entered the Elk River near Charleston, but it traveled. And as it traveled, water systems were alerted to, this concentration of contamination is moving through the water, it's passing by. And so I think in terms of water pollution and waterways, it's not stationary. So even if the contamination is happening in one location, I don't think that you have to necessarily be right there to get the information you might need. So it's not a stopping point if someone says, no, you can't test here, and that's where you think the contamination is happening. It's going to travel. So you can look farther downstream and see if there's another location where you could put the sensor in.
So what would you tell students who may have a particular way of thinking about journalism, that it's that they might think that math or electronics or any of these things are not something that they would need to know anything about, but how do you sort of pitch this idea of learning how to use sensors and using new tools to people who may not understand at first what that connection is, and how they can use and the benefit of the tools?
So students who are scared of math. Those are the people we're talking about?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I know it bothers me. It really bothers me when I have journalism students who say about themselves, well, yes, I can't do math, or I went into journalism because I can't do math. And I say to them, well, you have to do math as a journalist. You have to understand statistics. So you can't be ignorant to math and be a journalist. And I think that the new tools that are becoming available to journalists also show that you can't be a journalist and be ignorant to technology. You have to embrace it. You have to think about how you could use it to enhance your storytelling. You can't also, though, completely trust this one thing. You have to understand that there are limitations too, and that you still have to do traditional boots on the ground reporting, but that you can't be afraid to try these new tools, and also budget more time for your reporting when you are going to try these new tools. And the first time you start using a new tool in your reporting, you need to be very skeptical of it and of the information you gather, and run it by official sources, a scientist who actually studies water quality. Tell them, this is the information I got from using this device, because you don't want to put all of your faith in this device. What if you've deployed it wrong? What if you stuck wires in the wrong place and you didn't get the correct information? So I think you still need to be skeptical and verify your information through an expert. But don't be afraid of these new tools that journalists can use, because they really can take your storytelling to a new level. And also, I think that if you're interested as a journalist, if you're interested in telling science stories and telling environmental stories, then I think it's a natural fit then to also want to be out there gathering the information too. But again, just verify and talk to experts in the field.
That's perfect. That was a great answer. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to, because part of this is trying to sort of tell people, not being afraid, right? And
Yeah.
and
Okay.
this sort of experimentation. I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about like experimentation in concert with these things, because you're learning as you're going when you're doing
Yeah.
these things. And I think that's an important piece of this, is that it's not necessarily all figured out, and you're learning by doing. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that and that experience.
Okay. Personally, for me, it's been a neat experience to be able to use these sensors and in telling a story about water quality. It's really interesting to me to get to learn about this technology and to see the potential. I've done stories about air quality in West Virginia. I've done stories about water quality in West Virginia, and I could see sensors being used for a report on air quality. I know that we have air quality sensors around the state, but we need more, and we could put them in other places. And why not have more data to add to the data coming from government sources? So it can strengthen a story if done correctly. So that's been a really neat process for me to learn about these sensors, how they work, and how they can be used. But I've also been reminded in this process when I've been out with my students in the field and we've been on interviews that you just can't leave behind the pillars of quality journalism, the asking follow-up questions, listening to your interviews, doing your research beforehand when so you ask those knowledgeable questions when you're out in the field. And so having those moments with my students where they interview sources and then I can step in and say, okay, but we haven't talked about this yet. We really still need to make sure we get their response on this. So nothing beats coming to an interview prepared and conducting a quality interview. So you can't, just because we have these new tools, it doesn't mean that what journalism has existed on for decades, it doesn't mean that can go away. We still have to practice good journalism the way that it's always been practiced. I petered out there at the end, Amy. I thought I was doing good and then got bad.
That's okay.
Got it early.
So tell me a little bit about, you were talking about verification.
Yeah.
And I know that Derek Willis, when he does either when he teaches or when he does workshops and things like that, he talks about how you have to actually quote unquote interview the data. And I think to your point from earlier about being skeptical about the data. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that and how you might, how can you do that when you're using something that's brand new? How do you do that?
So it's important to verify your data when you are using these sensors. And we've been doing that in our project by working with expert water researchers. We are not water researchers. As a journalist, you become expert of the day or expert of the week or expert of the month, depending on how long you have to work on your story that you're working on. But we know, even if we spend months researching water quality issues, a specific water quality issue, that there are researchers here at West Virginia University who have spent years doing that. So we're going to go to them with our data and say, this is what we got. Okay, so what do you think about this? Does this look right to you? Could you compare this to data that you may have? And so one thing that we have done with our deployment of these sensors this semester is we didn't pick a waterway that nobody had ever tested before, that nobody knew what was going on there. We picked a waterway where we know there are some issues there, and we know that there's data that shows there are issues there. And we did that on purpose because we are new at this, And this is a new tool for us. And so we want to have other data to compare to ours to see, were we way off base in what we collected? And if we were way off base, is that verifiable, or is that a mistake on our part? So I think by starting in a location where we could cross-reference existing data, that's important to us in our project.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to sort of add about either sort of the high points, like, you know, good potentials, or perhaps other pitfalls that come with using these kinds of tools?
I think that there's great potential for using sensors to help a journalist or a team of journalists gather more information for a story. There have been times in my own reporting where data didn't exist where I thought that it should. And that leaves a hole in your story. It leaves a hole in an issue. So I think if we have this tool that can potentially help us fill that gap of information, to make our story more complete, to make the information that we share more complete, I think that that's wonderful, and that journalists should consider using these tools where it makes sense. I think that there are, of course, things that journalists need to be aware of when they're using these tools, and that really comes down to their own knowledge of what they're doing. You know, just be aware that if it's your first time deploying sensors, then you need to bring in other experts who can help make sure that you're doing this correctly, that the data that you're getting makes sense, that no one made a mistake with how they were using the equipment. And then understand that the data even still will have some limitations. In our project, we can't tell what specific contaminants are in the water with the sensor that we're using. We can tell that conductivity is an issue, but we can't tell what specific contaminants are in the water. So for us, what these sensors are telling us is that there could be an issue here. And that's pretty much all they're telling us. So from that, we then need to be reporters and investigate that further.
Cool. Okay, I think that's good. He's supposed to try to get like a minute and a half out of this, so
Okay.
figure out how that works. I don't know if go ahead.
It was 15 minutes. That's what I had. Did you have 15 minutes?
I don't see a time.
Uh-oh. I wonder if my thing stopped recording.
I don't see a time stamp anywhere here.
Okay. Okay, well, I got 15 minutes recorded. I don't see it. I don't see a time either. I don't know. I wonder if when I moved my phone or something, it stopped. So
Where did it say that it was like which one said 15 minutes?
my phone. He
Your
had me
phone did.
record just the audio on here.
Right.
He said it'll sound better than the audio being picked up on the via this microphone, but at least we have two audios.
Okay.
I
Okay,
guess
well-
if it's screwed up and we need to do it again, we could do it again.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know how to stop. This is on his account, right? So he can just download it and work on it, and then whatever audio that you need to send to him, we'll see what he comes up with.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think so.
I hope this is what you needed.
Yeah, I think that the stuff in the middle was great about your answer about the math question was good, because I mean it can be really intimidating, you know. I mean, I think Jillian is an outlier.
Yes. I
nice.
agree. Yeah, I think, you know, yeah, she definitely is, because she's enthused about it, you know, and I think, but I think the normal inclination is fear. But then if you can just get over that, I guess it's not such a big issue for me because I see students having to overcome that every semester because I teach beginning video recording. And so I teach students who are scared to death about touching a camera, so I have to get them over that. So, trying to get them to use a sensor, it's kind of the same thing, I guess.
It's just another tool, right? And it's sometimes it seems intimidating.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm like, where do I look? She's over here. The camera's here.
Well, yeah, with Jillian, it's really funny because she, like, again, you said she's so enthusiastic. And it's interesting because I wonder in some ways if using these new tools would actually attract a different type of person to become a journalist.
Yeah.
Because they could because they would be comfortable with these tools and maybe someone who's more of a writer wouldn't necessarily be comfortable with them, but this might actually attract other people to the profession, which could be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's Northwestern has a program where they take, I want to say computer scientists and train them to be journalists. People with computer science degrees can go and for a year and become journalists. And I don't know how that's working out, but I thought that was interesting, because I think people sell themselves short. That's what I get frustrated with. People sell themselves short. They're like, well, I'm a writer, so I can't do math. And it's like, no, nobody ever said that. I think somewhere along the way, somebody did say that to them. Somebody said, oh, you're a creative brain, so you don't get science, and that's what I think is unfortunate, is that we, somewhere in the system, people have been told you can't have both. You can't be competent in both, but you can.
Well, and I think that particularly women get told or pigeonholed sometimes that they, need to go a different path. And so, trying to figure out ways of lowering the bar of intimidation for these things. Because, the school, for example, I think if you looked at the numbers of people who are in the college, it's majority female, or at least it is in a lot of other places. So
Yeah.
How do you kind of pull the tech in and make it accessible and not just accessible, but exciting and worthwhile for them and get them excited about it.
Right, because probably they've been steered away from that in their schooling. And so now you have to steer them back towards it and say, yes, you can do these things. You're not just a writer. When you're a reporter, like I was saying, you have to become, you are a researcher and you have to become knowledgeable and an expert on something that you may know nothing about. And why not treat learning about this technology just like that,
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you. I will, I'll be in touch with David and see if there's anything else he needs, and I'll let him just run with it and we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good luck. Enjoy the break.
Thank you. You too. I've just got a lot of work to catch up on.
Oh, yeah. Well,
We
at
have to
least you
get
get to be at home, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have to finish that proposal for in the system, and it's such a bear, but it's fine.
I started that.
It's
so
like,
I know.
It's a silly system, and so it's just very annoying because you think you know something and you go in and it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's asking me for something else, and then you have to figure out what it is, and the language isn't really, it's not a transparent system at all. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, Aaron Lawley's a good resource too.
Yes, I've been emailing with him, although apparently I think he's out until Monday. Like I was emailing with him earlier today, and then I had another question, and I got I'm out of office, and I'm like, no, you can't be out of the office.
Yeah.
You're the one guy who I can ask this question of.
Yeah.
So, it's fine. It doesn't have, that part of it doesn't have to be done today, but I was hoping to get that part done so that then I can move on to part B next week. Yeah. So it's fine. It's it's more self-imposed deadlines, because if I could finish it by next week and then have everybody look at it, then we're way ahead of the game, because it's
well,
due
that's
April 11th. So.
Oh, that's good.
But the event is happening, and so that's why I'm like, I can't work on this the last week in March because we have the event happening. So
Oh, the makeup.
anyway, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And
anyway,
what is this video for? Is this
so
for
the
that?
video- no. So the video, David's been working on some of the like little vignettes. Dana did an interview with Mary Kay, and then also one with Allison. And the idea is that this will actually be on the Innovation Center's website.
Okay.
Because we're, basically as a college, we're sort of, trying to own these different areas. So, sensor journalism and using IoT and the Internet of Things, the do-it-yourself electronics is part of that. And so that's where this kind of fits in, as sort of a thought leadership kind of discussion about how do you use these things in a journalistic way. Allison talked a little bit about her data class and sort of, what they learned and all those sorts of things. So I think that, on hers, more so than I guess on Mary Kay's too. So David has a bunch of B-roll from, whenever you've been teaching or things like that. So he can layer on top.
Okay. We're done.
Yeah. So it's not just going to be like talking heads.
Okay.
So it'll be about, I think he's done like 1.5 to 2 minutes with B-roll layered on top and all that stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
he can explain it better than I can.
Okay. Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
We're done.
Yeah. We're just chatting.
Yeah. He came in to collect his stuff. So.
Sorry, I'm in the middle
Okay.
of
Bye,
class.
David.
Ran out for a second.
Okay. Well, I guess we're hanging up.
Yes, take care.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.